I made a huge mistake on my bachelor party trip. My fiancée moved on, and I just want her back. Part 2. In the 2 weeks since I got back home, it simultaneously feels like so much has happened and that virtually nothing has happened. I have been largely brought up to speed on all that has happened on this side of the world. When Jorge finally got out of bed that day, 5 years ago, he tried to call me. After having no success, the officers confiscated my phone immediately upon arrest. I never saw it again. He decided to just go about his day, assuming I was enjoying my excursion. It wasn't until it was well past dark that he started to get concerned. He called back home to see if anyone else had heard from me. The next morning, my family and fiancé were blowing up his phone, wondering if I had come back yet. That's when he began venturing out to all the excursion places. They all reported that they had not seen me. He began to panic and alerted everyone back home. He went to the authorities at this point. My parents, brother, and fiancé all made the trip to join him. They spent a month canvassing the area before they had to go back. My parents made another trip to Thailand to try and find me, but again, nothing came up. Over the next year and a half, they were a constant reminder to the Thai officials of my disappearance. Unfortunately, no one thought to look in Cambodia. Meanwhile, my fiancée Emily came to the realization that she was pregnant. On the day I left for Thailand, she was, unknowingly, around 10 weeks old. I can only imagine how hard it was on her. I'm missing her. She's pregnant with my child. I wish I had never gone. My parents told me Emily really leaned on them, and they were happy to help. Over the years, they've just grown closer and closer. Her parents were there and supportive, but they are much older than mine and not in as good of health. My mom ended up taking Emily to a lot of her OB appointments. She was there in the delivery room along with Emily's mom. It was apparently very stressful, as Paul was born at just 34 weeks. Luckily, he showed no signs of health problems, and they just kept him under heightened observation initially. My parents tell me they needed this. The anguish of not knowing what happened to me was very hard, and the birth of their grandson provided a much-needed respite from the grief. They keep telling me how sorry they are, but they didn't do anything wrong. I guess it's just guilt now that they know I was out there and they failed to find me. Jorge has been by to see me. He has apologized far too many times. He's gotten married since the trip and has 2 kids now. He seems nervous around me, and I guess that's fair. I do hold some resentment towards him. It's not his fault, but the feeling is there anyway. My brother and sister have marched on with life. My brother has kids now, and my sister is married. I missed all of this. I could probably get over all of that, but losing my fiancée and missing out on 4 years with my son, it's been too much. My parents have set me up with a therapist. I went to the first session but have no idea what to talk about. I was wrongfully incarcerated for 5 years, beaten at times, and starved at times. There is plenty of PTSD. My whole family thought I was dead, so much so that they had a memorial service for me 3 years after the day of my disappearance. I was supposed to marry the love of my life, and she is now engaged to someone else. Then, to top it all off, I have a 4-year-old son, who has been raised by my replacement since he was 18 months old. Paul only knows this guy as Dad. He calls him Dad, and now here I am, back from the dead to fuck up everyone else's perfect little lives. I'm ranting, though. It's just too much to unpack. I still haven't directly spoken to Emily. My father went to her house the day after my return. He sat her and her fiancé, Kevin 34M, down and told them I had been found. She began to tear up. She thought he was saying my body had been recovered. When he corrected her, she had a complete breakdown. Her fiancé comforted her, and my dad said she was just silent afterwards. I tried texting her, but I got no response for a whole day, then just "I'm so sorry, I just can't right now." I haven't asked anyone about her fiancé, other than I know she's been engaged for about 2 months, and the wedding is supposed to be in June. No one has just volunteered any information at this point. We were supposed to all meet at the park this past weekend. My resurgence has thrown the harmony out of whack, and I can tell everyone is a little off. My mother typically watches Paul while Emily and Kevin are at work. A lot of the time it's at her house, but since I showed up, it's been exclusively over at Emily's. I hear they are preparing for him to meet me. He is aware I'm his father. My pictures are all over my parents' house. Emily has apparently always had a picture of me in Paul's room. I'm a shell of the guy in the picture, but I guess at least I kind of look like that still. He won't be totally blindsided. My parents and I arrived at the park first. When we saw their car pull up, only Kevin and Paul got out. Emily was not with them. Paul ran up to my dad first and gave him a big hug. He saw me and kind of retreated to my mom, then over to Kevin. I could tell he was nervous. I mean, shit, so was I, and I'm not 4 years old. The other adults tried to say something to get us to talk, embrace, or something. I told them to let it go and let him go play. He perked up and ran off to the playground. Kevin came up and stuck his hand out. We shook, and he said, "Sorry, Emily, I couldn't today." We were about out the door, and she broke down and told me she wasn't ready. I just said, "I understand." I went over to the playground to try and bond in some way. It turns out Paul is big into superheroes. He pretended to be Spider-Man, and I had to be Rhino. I chased him all over the playground and let him web me up. He laughed and smiled. When the food was ready, I was happy to see that he liked his hot dogs the same as me. Ketchup on one side, mustard on the other, and relish on top. I thought maybe this wouldn't be so hard. Then he called Kevin Dad. I shouldn't have been surprised by this. He's been in this kid's life for 2.5 years. He married his mom. They all live in the same house. That all said, it was like a knife in the heart. I began to actually tear up. I excused myself for a moment and said I was going over to the gross part bathroom. When I came out after a minute, Kevin was waiting. I could see my parents across the way watching Paul. I felt instantly awkward. The last thing I wanted right now was a heart-to-heart with Kevin. He was taller than me, more built than me, and had gotten to have the life I was supposed to have. He just said, "Can we talk?" I said, "Yeah, man, what's on your mind?" Kevin began, "Look, I'm sorry for what happened to you. It's a bad deal all around. I just wanted to talk because I'm worried about Emily and Paul. Emily is more than him. She hasn't been herself, which I can appreciate to some degree. It took a long time for her to get over you. I'm the first person she dated after your incident. She cried the first time we kissed because it was different. I want you to have a relationship with your son. He's little, but he's resilient. I had 2 dads growing up, and I know he will be fine. I don't know how fine she or you will be if this goes too fast, and from a selfish standpoint, I don't want anything disrupting our lives or our engagement. I love her and want what's best. I'd like you two to take it slow and process everything before you meet. I made an appointment for her to see a counselor. I'd appreciate it if you could respect that and not push her or reach out to her. Let her figure things out on her own first." I was pissed listening to his pretentious ass, but fuck, he had some points. I don't want to rip open all these old wounds. I ended up just saying, "Yeah, man, I can do that." And I walked off to join my parents and Paul. Kevin went into the bathroom. When he came back over, he said he and Paul were going to head out. Paul gave everyone hugs, including me. I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised. Then he called me Rhino and ran off to Kevin. As they left, I heard him say, "Dad, can we get a cookie cake on the way home?" Ugh, he's Dad, I'm Rhino, and this just fucking stinks.